So, um, have you ever walked into a new situation, maybe like a job interview or a first date, something like that, and you just felt that little, nudge?
That nudge to present your best self. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, like carefully picking your words, trying to make a specific impression.
Or maybe the opposite, those moments of real connection where honesty is key and the words just flow authentically.
Right. Well, today we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating science behind those two things: speaking to impress versus speaking to express.
We'll be looking at why we do it, what's happening up here in our brains, and how these different ways of communicating, well, how they ripple out into our lives, our societies, even the planet.
And here's where it gets, I think, really interesting. We're going to uncover the role of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
AI's role in understanding, analyzing, and maybe even shaping these communication patterns. It's pretty profound.
Sometimes surprising, too.
Yeah. So this deep dive, it's built on insights from a really cutting-edge AI-driven scientific study. It's called The Science of Human Rhetoric, an AI study.
And it is packed with fascinating stuff about how we talk to each other.
Totally. Our mission today is basically to pull out the most important bits, give you those aha moments, make sure you feel well-informed, but not, like, overwhelmed.
Okay, so let's start simple. Let's define these two poles, speaking to impress first.
Yeah. So the study sees this as a communication strategy, right? Focused on influencing how others see you.
And achieving specific outcomes, external ones.
Yeah.
It often means like curating what you share, selectively revealing parts of yourself.
Like when you meet someone new and you drop those interesting statements about yourself, as the study puts it.
Or maybe casually mention an achievement. Yeah.
It's all part of what researchers call impression management, which can be conscious or sometimes maybe totally subconscious, aiming for that social recognition or some kind of gain.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, you have speaking to express.
Right. This is where the priority shifts. It's about truthfulness, transparency.
And genuinely conveying what's inside. Your thoughts, your feelings, your intentions.
The main goal here seems to be clarity and authentic connection, building empathy, building respect.
Yeah, it's less about seeking that external validation or trying to manipulate and more about just articulating clearly.
Which feels really foundational, doesn't it? For building strong relationships, building trust.
Absolutely. And this distinction, it actually connects to a really interesting concept, performativity.
Performativity.
Okay.
Tell me.
It's the idea that language doesn't just describe the world. Sometimes it actually does something in the world.
Ah, okay. Like actions, but with words.
Precisely. The philosopher J.L. Austin made this distinction. He talked about constative language, stuff that just describes things, true or false.
Like the sky is blue.
Right, versus performative language, which performs an action just by being said.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Like saying I do at a wedding, that utterance makes you married. Or saying I promise or I bet. The words themselves are the action.
Got it. So the words create the reality in that moment.
Exactly. And Judith Butler took this further. She argued that identity, like gender, for instance, isn't fixed, but it's this ongoing process.
Constructed socially.
Yeah, constructed socially through these performative acts, all through life, starting right from birth.
Wow. So speaking to impress, in that light, isn't just showing a persona you want people to see.
It's actively constructing that social reality for yourself and for others.
That's a heavy thought. But I mean, is it always one or the other, purely impress or purely express?
Well, no, not really. That's the thing. The study emphasizes it's more like a fluid continuum. Communication rarely sits purely at one end.
Okay, how so?
Think about it. Really authentic communication, just by being genuine, can actually create a really positive impression, right? It builds deeper trust.
Ah, so expressing authentically can lead to being impressive, accidentally almost?
Right. And conversely, even when you're consciously performing, trying to impress, that act is still an expression of something. Maybe a desire or an intention to influence.
It's a complex dance then. We're always sort of navigating between them.
Constantly. And it's important to note that speaking to impress or impression management, it actually serves a purpose. It has real social utility.
How do you mean?
Well, it's everywhere and often unconscious. It's kind of an adaptive function, helping us navigate social situations, Gain acceptance, get status, maybe just avoid embarrassment.
Saving face, as they say.
Exactly, saving face.
So the problem isn't impression management itself, necessarily.
Not always. The ethical red flags pop up when that utility, that desire to impress, starts to override truthfulness.
Leading to manipulation.
Yeah.
Deception.
Precisely. Or just gradually eroding trust. That's when it becomes problematic.
Okay. This whole dynamic gets even more layered when we bring AI into the picture, right? You said it acts as a mirror and an amplifier.
Yeah, it's a fascinating duality. On one hand, AI technologies are actively reshaping human behavior, our thinking, our social lives.
We see it everywhere, don't we? Social media algorithms deciding what pops up in our feeds.
Personalized recommendations, those conversational assistants on our phones, even things like deepfakes.
Right, generative AI.
These things are all around us, often influencing us without us even realizing it consciously.
Like the whole echo chamber effect.
Yeah.
Where algorithms feed us stuff that just confirms what we already believe.
Exactly. Reinforcing biases, limiting our exposure to different views. And deepfakes, well, they seriously undermine trust in digital content, don't they? You start questioning what's real.
Yeah, it definitely leads to skepticism about media institutions.
But then there's the other side. AI is also an incredibly powerful tool for research, for understanding us.
How so?
Its analytical capabilities are just unprecedented. AI can dissect really complex human communication patterns, things humans would miss. It can even detect subtle clues of deception.
Okay, tell me about that. How does it work?
Well, there's a branch of AI called natural language processing, or NLP. It basically enables computers to understand, interpret, and respond to human language by crunching massive amounts of data.
So it looks for patterns in text or speech.
Exactly. Patterns linked to deception, like word counts, the types of pronouns used.
You mentioned pronoun usage earlier. Fewer I statements.
Yeah, the study notes that deceivers often use fewer first-person singular pronouns, like I or me. It's a way to subconsciously distance themselves from the lie, avoid ownership.
Interesting. What else?
Specific emotion words or terms that signal exclusion. AI can pick up on these subtle linguistic markers. And get this, the study mentions AI models hitting over 99% accuracy in identifying certain types of manipulation, like gaslighting.
99%. Wow. That's
Yeah.
almost perfect. That kind of accuracy could completely change how we deal with manipulation, couldn't it?
It's potentially transformative, yeah. And there's more. Large language models, LLMs, can now simulate human subjects.
Simulate people.
They can role-play, essentially. Researchers can use them to efficiently test theories of persuasion or social influence on a massive scale, which is hard to do with real people.
So instead of recruiting thousands of participants, you can run simulations with AI.
Right. It overcomes a lot of practical hurdles in traditional research.
And you mentioned something about neural similarities between brains and AI.
Yeah, this was maybe one of the most mind-bending findings in the study. It suggests that biological brains and some AI systems can actually develop remarkably similar neural patterns when they're interacting socially.
Whoa. So AI might help us understand fundamental principles of social cognition that apply across different kinds of intelligence.
That's the implication. It's a profound idea suggesting there might be universal rules for social intelligence, whether it's biological or artificial.
Okay, so AI is definitely a mirror, reflecting our patterns back at us, sometimes with startling clarity. But how is it an amplifier?
Well, think about the platform's AI powers. Social media, content recommendation systems. They often reward curated content. Engagement is key.
Likes, shares, views.
Exactly. And that can inadvertently amplify our tendencies towards impression management. It creates incentives to present that polished, curated self. It can heighten that culture of performativity we talked about.
So it encourages the impress side of the equation.
It certainly can, yeah. It's this powerful dual role reflecting us and potentially pushing us further in certain directions.
It really is. So if AI is showing us these patterns, let's dig deeper into the why. Why do we impress or express? What's going on in our brains and our behavior?
Okay, so the roots of speaking to impress run deep, psychologically and sociologically. Irving Goffman's work is really key here.
Oh, Goffman, the sociologist.
Yeah.
He had that analogy of life as a stage, right?
Exactly. The presentation of self in everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
He saw social interactions as these intricate theatrical performances.
We're all actors, basically,
Oh.
managing our performance to shape how others see us.
Consciously or unconsciously, yeah. From face-to-face chats to, carefully crafting our online profiles. Goffman also talked about it being a mutually cooperative effort. We all kind of agree on the definition of the situation.
And a big driver is avoiding embarrassment. that saving face thing again.
That's a core motive, absolutely.
Okay, and on the other side, authentic communication. Speaking to express.
Well, as we said, that's characterized by truthfulness, transparency, genuine self-expression. It's really the bedrock for strong relationships. Fosters trust, empathy, a sense of belonging.
But it requires vulnerability, doesn't it? Putting your real self out there feels risky.
It does. There's a perceived risk of rejection. But paradoxically, that vulnerability is often where the real strength lies. It builds a much deeper sense of belonging and acceptance because you feel seen for who you actually are.
Not just some image you've built.
Right. And philosophically, it's tied to living in line with your true self, your values. That alignment is generally really good for psychological health and personal growth.
So what's happening in the brain during all this? Are there specific areas linked to managing impressions versus being authentic?
It's complex, involving several brain regions linked to social cognition and self-awareness.
Like which ones?
While the study mentions the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, the DMPFC, think of it like your brain's social updater. It seems crucial for forming and adjusting our impressions of other people.
Okay, the DMPFC for reading others. What about thinking about ourselves?
That seems heavily linked to the medial prefrontal cortex, the MPFC. It's particularly active when we think about ourselves, our own traits, and also when we try to infer what others are thinking, that process called mentalizing.
Mentalizing. Like trying to guess someone's intentions or beliefs.
Exactly. And then there's the amygdala.
The emotion center.
Yeah, but it's also really tuned into social information, like assessing trustworthiness, responding to social rewards, and its activity can even be modulated by where we perceive ourselves in a social hierarchy.
So our brain is constantly tracking our social standing.
It seems to be. And remember that cocktail party effect? How you can pick your name out of a noisy room?
Yeah, even if you weren't consciously listening.
That shows how our brains are uniquely wired to prioritize self-related information. This capacity for self-awareness, combined with social cognition, forms the neural basis for impression management. It's linked to something called self-monitoring.
Self-monitoring.
Yeah,
Like being aware of how you're coming across.
pretty much. And evolutionarily, it makes sense. Our brains are highly sensitive to social threats, rejection, exclusion. So that drive for social safety can push us towards impression management, towards trying to fit in and gain acceptance.
Okay, so that's the self-presentation side. What about when communication gets more strategic or even deceptive? What are the cognitive mechanisms there?
Well, strategic communication, like leadership communication, for example, requires real cognitive skill. The study talks about cognitive proficiency. It's not just being smart, but having that mental agility to synthesize complex information quickly and then weave it into a compelling story that connects with people.
And deception. Does lying take more brain effort?
Generally, yes. The study points out that deception often carries a significant cognitive cost. Lying typically takes longer than telling the truth, and people tend to make more errors when they're lying.
Why is that?
Because you have to juggle things mentally. You need to keep the truth active in your working memory, suppress it, and construct and deliver the lie consistently. That creates conflict in the brain.
So your brain is literally working harder.
Yeah, and brain activity studies show this. Using things like ERP's event-related potentials, researchers see specific brainwave patterns, like the CNV and N200 components spike, indicating higher effort and conflict detection. It supports this cognitive load hypothesis.
That's fascinating. And what about self-deception? Lying to ourselves.
Well, there's an evolutionary perspective on that, too. The idea is that self-deception might have evolved partly to make us better liars to others.
How would that work?
If you genuinely believe your own deception, you don't give off those subtle, unconscious cues that might betray your insincerity. It reduces that cognitive load we just talked about, makes the lie easier to maintain, and maybe minimizes punishment if you're caught.
So by fooling ourselves, we become more convincing to others, allows us to display unwarranted confidence, as this study puts it.
Exactly. It sounds like this ongoing evolutionary arms race, doesn't it, between deceivers and those trying to detect deception.
It really does. Can you elaborate on that evolutionary perspective? Signaling theory, maybe?
Sure. Signaling theory looks at how individuals communicate, especially when their interests might conflict. You have honest signals versus dishonest signals.
And honest signals are usually reliable because they're costly to fake, right? Like a peacock's tail.
Precisely. That's the handicap principle. The tail is cumbersome, makes the peacock vulnerable, so only genuinely fit males can afford such an extravagant display. It's a reliable signal of quality.
How does that apply to humans?
Think about costly human behaviors. Maybe large charitable donations, intense displays of commitment, or even risk-taking behaviors could function as honest signals of underlying qualities like wealth, loyalty, strength, or cooperative intent. Things that are hard to fake convincingly.
Okay. And status seeking, that's another big evolutionary driver, I imagine.
Absolutely. Researchers talk about two ways to the top.
Which are?
Dominance, basically, using intimidation, coercion, and prestige earning status based on skills, knowledge, being respected and admired.
And our communication style adapts depending on which path we're pursuing.
Exactly. You might use more assertive, dominant language or perhaps more ingratiating, flattering behaviors to gain prestige or approval. Our brains even seem to have specific circuits for perceiving social dominance in others.
And deception fits into this evolutionary picture, too.
Yes, as a strategy to gain resources, mates, status, potentially bypassing the costs of honest signaling or direct competition, which again fuels that coevolutionary arms race between deception and detection.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about why we do this, but what are the actual effects? The ripples of impress-driven communication, especially in today's world, starting with individuals.
Well, the pressure to speak to impress, especially online, can create a real disconnect.
I mean, between the online persona and the real self.
Exactly. That false self-presentation, curating this idealized version online, leads to a gap. And that gap can fuel negative self-evaluation, fear of judgment. It becomes this self-perpetuating cycle of anxiety and self-doubt for some people.
And does it actually make people feel more connected, all those likes and followers?
Often, no. The study mentions social snacking, these superficial online interactions. They might give you a temporary mood boost, but they often create an illusion of connection.
So you can feel quite isolated despite having many friends online.
Profoundly so, yes. It doesn't fulfill that fundamental human need for deep, genuine connection.
And this links to mental health issues.
Studies consistently show correlations between heavy social media use and increased anxiety, depression, body image concerns, particularly for younger people who are still forming their identities.
And that constant comparison, the curated feeds, it can lead to identity confusion too, right? Blurring the lines between who you are and who you present online.
Definitely. Especially with what's called online disinhibition.
Feeling freer to say things online you wouldn't say face-to-face?
Yeah, that sense of anonymity or detachment can lower inhibitions, sometimes for the worse, further complicating that sense of self.
Okay, so those are individual impacts. What about broader societal and cultural effects?
Well, misinformation and disinformation are huge ones. Communication designed primarily to impress, persuade, or manipulate, rather than inform truthfully, poses massive risks.
To public health, democratic processes.
Absolutely. It undermines our collective ability to make sense of the world, to have informed debates. It erodes trust.
And political polarization seems fueled by this too.
Very much so. Political rhetoric, especially what the study calls indignant disagreement, language designed to activate divisions, and outrage hits public trust hard. It polarizes even institutions we used to see as neutral, like science or how elections are run.
And social media algorithms often pour fuel on that fire, right?
Yeah.
By amplifying divisive content because it gets engagement.
Unfortunately, yes. Angry, radical content often travels faster and wider.
We also see this impress motive in the corporate world, sometimes leading to major deception.
For sure. Think about scandals like Wells Fargo creating millions of fake accounts to meet sales targets. That's impressing shareholders at the expense of customers and ethics.
Or corporate greenwashing.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like Volkswagen's Dieselgate, rigging emissions tests to seem environmentally friendly, or companies making vague, eco-friendly claims without substance.
It damages trust and makes it harder for genuinely sustainable companies to stand out.
Exactly. And it hinders real progress. We should also briefly mention cultural variations.
Right, communication isn't the same everywhere.
No, direct versus indirect styles differ hugely, and how people manage impressions varies according to cultural norms. What's considered polite or persuasive in one culture might be rude or ineffective in another.
And one particularly damaging societal impact is dehumanizing language.
Yes, that has profound effects. Using language to portray another group as less than human. It's a common tactic in conflicts. It reduces empathy, increases aggression, and historically it's been used to justify horrific human rights violations.
It basically strips away the moral restraints against harming others.
Precisely.
Okay, and you mentioned greenwashing under corporate deception. How does this speaking to impress specifically affect our relationship with nature and the environment?
Greenwashing is the prime example here. It's impress-driven communication applied to environmental claims.
So companies using misleading labels, vague terms like eco-conscious, maybe irrelevant green imagery, all to appear environmentally responsible.
Exactly. Without making substantive changes, they might highlight one small positive thing while hiding larger negative impacts. Or just use fuzzy language that sounds good but means little.
And the impact.
It seriously undermines consumer trust. People become cynical. It makes it harder to mobilize the collective action we need for big challenges like climate change because there's so much confusion and distrust sown by this inauthentic communication.
It actively works against genuine environmental efforts.
Directly. When communication isn't rooted in ecological truth, it leads to bad decisions, complacency, and ultimately further environmental damage.
All right, so we've seen how AI mirrors and amplifies these dynamics, and the impacts are significant. But can AI be part of the solution?
Yeah.
Can it help guide us towards more authenticity?
Well, there's potential there, definitely. We already talked about AI's analytical power. NLP, LLMs, they can analyze communication patterns, spot those linguistic markers of fakeness, even identify things like gaslighting with high accuracy.
But you also mentioned the challenge. Humans are bad at spotting AI-generated text, and deepfakes are a real threat, especially politically. We can be easily fooled.
That's the double-edged sword, yes. Detection is hard, and human intuition often fails us there.
Okay, but beyond analysis, can AI help in other ways? Simulating social dynamics.
Yeah, this is another powerful application. LLMs can role-play human subjects, as we discussed, allowing researchers to test persuasion theories, predict behavior, study social phenomena at scale in ways never possible before.
Like those virtual sandboxes you mentioned. Agent society.
Exactly. Frameworks like that let researchers simulate entire populations of AI agents, tens of thousands interacting, forming networks, spreading ideas online and offline, even engaging in economic activity.
So you can model how information or misinformation spreads, how polarization develops.
Precisely. And interestingly, studies show these artificial agents can sometimes lead to significantly faster and wider social contagion. Ideas might spread even more rapidly in these simulated societies. AI can model opinion shifts, polarization, even induce biases like confirmation bias just through how the AI agents are prompted.
That's incredible for understanding these dynamics.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about fostering good communication? Can AI help us be more authentic, think more critically?
There are efforts in that direction. For instance, developing AI tools to humanize AI-generated text.
Humanize AI text, how?
By adjusting the tone, making the conversation flow more smoothly, trying to build more trust and rapport, bridging the gap between AI's efficiency and our human need for connection.
Interesting. What else?
Leadership development's another area. AI could provide personalized feedback to leaders on their communication style, helping them become more authentic, more effective, maybe even better at cross-cultural communication, like a virtual coach.
Okay. And in education.
Huge potential there for promoting critical thinking and media literacy. AI tools could prompt students to generate counterarguments, prepare for debates, analyze case studies, really push them to engage more deeply.
And helping sort fact from fiction.
Yes, automated fact-checking tools, deepfake detection tools. These can help individuals become more critical consumers of information, better equipped to evaluate what they see and hear.
And this focus on authenticity, it needs to start early.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The study mentions pedagogical strategies for children, creating safe environments where they feel comfortable expressing themselves without judgment.
Using things like art or journaling.
Yeah, and simple strategies like the 2x10 relationship building idea, educators spending just 2 minutes for 10 consecutive days talking non-academically with the student. Building that trust and connection fosters authentic expression.
So building those foundational skills early on. Now, you mentioned cultural variations, but are there universal principles here?
I think so. While styles differ, the underlying ethical principles, honesty, respect for autonomy, seem pretty consistent across cultures. And the harms of misinformation, manipulation, dehumanizing language, those are universally damaging. They strike at the core of how human societies function.
So authentic communication, especially from leaders, is crucial for societal well-being.
Intrinsically linked, yes. Effective governance, collective action, they rely on a foundation of trust which authentic communication builds.
So how should we respond when we encounter inauthentic communication, whether it's minor impression management or outright deception?
It needs a nuanced approach, balancing tolerance with action where needed.
For individuals,
Things like practicing assertive communication, stating your needs clearly and respectfully, sharpening critical thinking skills, fact-checking information before sharing, and managing our own emotional reactions, not getting immediately swept up.
and in workplaces or organizations.
Leaders play a key role, fostering a culture where respectful, authentic communication is the norm. Choosing words carefully, listening actively, making sure actions align with words. Walking the talk.
And for the really serious stuff, corporate fraud, political demagoguery,
Then you need stronger measures. Legal actions, regulatory frameworks, fines for corporate misconduct, maybe specific regulations around AI-generated deepfakes and political campaigns.
so individual skills, organizational culture, and legal guardrails.
Ultimately, the goal is building societal resilience, boosting media literacy, digital literacy, civic literacy, so people are better equipped to navigate this complex communication landscape.
Okay, let's try to pull all these threads together now. We've explored this really fundamental push and pull in how we communicate.
That dichotomy between speaking to impress and speaking to express.
Yeah. We've seen how deep it runs in our psychology, our evolution, and how AI is now this major new factor, not just watching, but actively shaping the game.
And this deep dive, based on that AI study, really highlighted AI's dual nature, didn't it? Significant challenges, deep fakes, misinformation amplification.
But also these incredible opportunities. Analyzing communication like never before, detecting manipulation, maybe even helping us foster more authenticity and critical thinking.
So where does that leave us? What's the path forward?
Well, the best possible scenario, I think, involves consciously steering this. We need to prioritize authentic communication and critical thinking skills, right from childhood through education, ethical leadership.
And leveraging AI responsibly as a tool to support those goals, not undermine them.
If we can do that, maybe we can build a future where truth and genuine connection really lead the way for healthier individuals, more cohesive societies.
And maybe even a more sustainable relationship with the natural world, moving beyond things like greenwashing.
It's a hopeful vision. So, as a final thought for everyone listening,
As you go about your week, maybe just notice those moments. Notice the urge to impress versus the opportunity to simply express.
and consider this. What's one small way you could lean just a little more towards expressing authentically, even when it feels vulnerable? How might that single shift ripple outwards in your own life and in the lives of people around you?
This is DigitView.